Hey, it's Katie, and today on Katie's Take 5 Friday, I'm going to be counting down my top 5 favorite fantasy shows. So I've attempted to make this video a couple of times, and every time I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I leave this show out? Oh my gosh, how could I leave this show out? So I basically had a war within myself, just trying to figure out the 5 shows to put on this list, and it's really, really difficult. So I just had to pick 5 of my favorite live-action fantasy shows, and I guess all these shows kind of count as medieval fantasy, so not just strictly fantasy. Alright, so starting out at number 5 is Once Upon a Time. I have a love-hate relationship with this show, so it was on and off and on and off of my list, but there are some things that I love about the show, and other things that I'm like, I don't like that. I think the good outweighs the bad, and there are some seasons that I absolutely love, and I really like the dynamic of the show. I love that they bring in all these fairy tale characters, and for me, that's really fun. Being a huge Disney fan, I have always wanted to see my very favorite Disney characters come to life in a live action show or movie. So for me, I find that very enjoyable that they mix in these characters. At the same time, I would rather see them in the Enchanted Forest than in Storybrooke, but that's just personal preference because I love medieval fantasy shows and movies. So anytime they go back to the Enchanted Forest or to Neverland, that season was cool, I'm all about it. The show's not perfect, but overall, I still find it really enjoyable, so had to be on my list. Number 4, Spartacus. So for me, I'm talking about the Spartacus that was on Starz recently, made by Rob Tappert and of course starring Lucy Lawless. I loved the show. A lot of people didn't like it, but for me, I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but for me, I really enjoyed the show. I think the first season was the best out of all of it. The first season was so incredible, and it was really sad when they had to switch to a new Spartacus. That was really, really sad. But they did a good job with a new Spartacus. They didn't expect him to be identical to Andy, and so for me, I really liked that. I loved the show. I thought they did a great job with it. And one thing I loved best about the show were the characters. So for me, I was really invested in the characters. And some characters had huge arcs and they would just kill people off, and it was a really exciting show. So for me, I loved Spartacus. I thought it was great. Number 3, Legend of the Seeker. I love Legend of the Seeker. I was so mad when they canceled it because they rushed the ending and the ending was terrible, but the show was so great. They did a good job with it. They showed it on, I think, ABC, so they couldn't do a whole lot. For me, I think the show would have been better if it wasn't on ABC, because I think they were kind of held back by like Disney expectations or whatever, especially when it comes to like the fighting and the blood and that sort of thing. But that show was awesome and had potential to be incredible. But I think it's a very underrated show, and I personally loved it, and it had some really awesome storylines and characters, and if you haven't seen Legend of the Seeker, you should definitely go see it. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, so you should check it out, because it's really good, and I was really sad that there wasn't more. Alright, getting down to the bottom 2, and if you guys have been following me for a while, I'm sure you already know what they are, but number 2, Xena Warrior Princess. That was my childhood show, if you didn't know. I started watching it when I was 5, because I'm crazy, I guess. And Xena's always been my hero, so I love that show. I own all 6 seasons on DVD, and I go to Xena conventions because I'm a nerd. That's kind of where my love of medieval fantasy started, and I can thank Xena for that, but I love the show. I think they did a great job of having dramatic episodes as well as having comedic episodes, and a great cast of characters, and the show was really well done. And I think it was ahead of its time for a TV show that was syndicated. So yeah, of course Xena had to be on my list. Alright, and number 1 is, everyone go ahead and guess, because you're gonna get it right. It's Game of Thrones! Not only is Game of Thrones my very favorite medieval fantasy show, but it's also the highest quality made medieval fantasy show of all time. You literally sit there and watch an hour movie every single week, and that's what's so incredible about Game of Thrones. There's so many different ways people go about making medieval fantasy shows. You can go the 300 route, you can go the Game of Thrones route, you can go with more of like a Gallivant or Xena type show. But for me, Game of Thrones is my very favorite medieval fantasy show in style, because I really love the dramatic nature of it as well as the way it's shot. I love it. I love that they use real locations, but they also use CGI in the right ways. Obviously, it is the best medieval fantasy show of all time. This list was so impossible to make, so I just had to pick shows that were personal for me, but I'm really curious to hear what you guys think. What are your very favorite medieval fantasy shows? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hey you, don't go anywhere. Make sure you click that button right there to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my next video. And just in case you missed my last video, click right on over here to check it out.